Okay. All right. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we have Kimberly Richardson sitting in for the city clerk. So I'm going to ask Kimberly if she'll call the roll, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Ravel. Here. Alderman Rainey. Here. Alderman Fleming.
Here.
Alderman Flisk. Here. Alderman Braithwaite. Here. Alderman Nguyen. Here. Alderman Wilson. Here. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Here.
Alderman Sufferton.
Here.
Mayor Hagerty.
Here. All right, we have all 9 city council members here for our meeting today, Monday, August 14th, 2017. Thank you for, obviously, to all our elected officials for being here and to all of the people that are here and watching us tonight on TV. I am excited that we also have some young people that are here this evening. I think they were in my office and we were talking about the importance of civic engagement. So they are way back there. They got the cheap seats tonight, but they are waving their hands. That is Boy Scout Troop 929. There are probably about 20 of them that are here. They meet every Monday or often on Mondays at Haven. And these are young people between the 6th grade and the 12th grade here in Evanston. So welcome to the Boy Scout Troop. I think it's a great opportunity for all of us up here on the dais, as well as everybody in the crowd who will be up here for public comment, to model what good, responsible civic engagement is like. I think that's really, really important for not only our community, but the whole world. And on that note, we all witnessed and observed some very upsetting protests and demonstration this week and in Charlottesville. I did communicate today with the mayor of Charlottesville to pass along our unity with them, okay, against hate and bigotry and racism and all that those protesters were there marching for, and sent those thoughts on to the mayor on behalf of everyone here in Evanston. So that occurred today. The last thing is a real honor for us tonight. We have with us, I believe, the widow of Sanders Ivy Hicks, who many people in this room know, was our first African-American fire chief here in Evanston. And on this occasion, we would like to present a proclamation on behalf of the city to his widow. So if you could come up to the front, and if I can get oh, here it is.
What's her name? I'm not sure. Darn it.
Okay. I'm going to come up in front of you. Now, there's supposed to be a piece of paper. Okay, I'm going to come out. Oh, I see. Guys, can you hear me? You guys? Okay, wait a second. You guys can tell that I'm a rookie, right? First time mayor here. So I have figured out how to use the mic. And it is my honor as the mayor to present this proclamation to you in honor of Chief Sanders Ivy Hicks. And we're proclaiming it Chief Sanders Ivy Hicks Day today. You'll have to excuse me. I'm going to take off my glasses to be able to read this. But I want everybody here to read it and to really understand the magnitude of Chief's life and the impact that he made on this entire community. Whereas Chief Sanders Ivy Hicks was a very dignified, honorable, hardworking, caring, compassionate individual and leader in the Evanston community, and whereas in 1950, Chief Hicks became Evanston's first African-American firefighter, and during the first 12 years as a firefighter, he never took a sick day. And whereas in 1963, Chief Hicks became a captain in the fire department, and whereas Chief Hicks started the Evanston Speed Skating Club in 1966 with Robert Crown as the base, And whereas Chief Hicks became the Assistant Chief Training Officer in 1973, and while in that position, he helped to launch the paramedic program that replaced the use of the police station wagons delivering patients to the hospital. And whereas Chief Hicks was also the Commissioner of Officials for the Amateur Speed Skating Union of the United States, he conducted the International Speed Skating Union Starters Clinics and was inducted into the Speed Skating Hall of Fame for his work as a coach, fundraiser, meet director, promoter, national and international starter, and chief starter at world competitions. And whereas Chief Hicks was a member of the Illinois Fire Chiefs Association and the Professional Photographers Association, and an honorable member of many other organizations with lifetime membership. And whereas in 1980, he became the first African-American fire chief and held that position until he retired in 1987. And in 2015, Fire's Central Headquarters Training Room was named in his honor. Now, therefore, I, Stephen Howard Haggerty, Mayor of the City of Evanston, do hereby proclaim August 14th, 2017, today, as Chief Sanders Ivy Hicks Day in memory of Chief Hicks' legacy and leadership to the entire community of Evanston. And would the fire chief come on up? Come on up, Chief Scott. And I'd also like to do a quick photo up here. Let's see here. It feels good to live in Evanston, doesn't it? All right, the next order of business, city manager, as you can all tell, this is not Wally Bobkowitz sitting to my right tonight. We have Deputy City Manager Marty Lyons, who is here for our city manager who's on a well-deserved August vacation. So City Manager Lyons, if you want to make any announcements, I'd welcome them.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm going to just go out of order and have Lawrence Hemingway come up first to talk about the community picnic coming on August 20th.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, Assistant Manager Lyons, and Assistant Manager to the Kim Richardson. Thank you for this opportunity. It's with pleasure that I come just to make an announcement that this Sunday, August 20th, from noon to 4 p.m., we're going to celebrate our annual community picnic. This year, as years past, we have many options for people in the community to come out as we celebrate our back-to-school time of the year. Come and enjoy come and enjoy the park, Ingram Park behind us. We'll have free food, we'll have entertainment, we'll have activities that will celebrate the diversity of this great community. Some of those activities will include the Sweet Molly 7 as entertainment. We're going to have balloon art and temporary tattoos for the children. We'll also have the Jesse White tumblers, as we usually do each and every year. Some other activities, we're going to play bubble ball. So for those who you don't know, bubble ball is a very exciting growing sport. If you might have seen it on TV, you get inside the bubble and you go and bump into each other. So please come on out and enjoy us and have some of that fun. We're going to do 3-on-3 basketball. There'll be lots of inflatables. And of course, we have over 30 different organizations that will be present to give things out to the community as kids get ready to go back to school. And then there's one more new opportunity. Our department has been working very closely with the Fifth Ward Planning Committee, who will be doing something special in terms of having some outreach classes inside the Civic Center while the picnic is going on. So we ask everyone to come out this Sunday, again, August 20th, from noon to 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. Alderman Braithwaite had a
Just a
comment
quick
that you
question
want
for
to make.
you. Will you be bringing back the dunk tank?
No, sir, there's no dunk tank this year.
Kelly?
To that point, I just want to say I offered to let people dunk the mayor and was still a liability or something like that. There's
Well, I've
no
been
dunk
told
tank.
the dunk tank is banned forever. That's all I can say.
That's it, huh?
I think most of you know why.
Okay, thank you. Just kidding.
I don't know why. I'll have to find that out. Okay.
Well, as a former dunk tankie, I'm in a brace right now, so I would be out. And I know other members have had injuries associated with the dunk tank. So my second announcement is just to ask the council, we are trying to settle on a date for equity training for the council. So the question to the floor is a discussion to remind that we want a date for council to move forward with equity training with Pat Effiam in the very near future. So those are my announcements.
Terrific, terrific. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. As I mentioned, our city clerk could not be here tonight, but we, so therefore I don't think we have any communications from the clerk's office, but
That's correct.
okay. All right. So we're going to move on to the next item, which is public comment. We have 17 people that have signed up for public comment tonight. As everyone knows, we try to keep public comment in total to no more than 45 minutes. So, if we had 15 people, that would be 3 minutes apiece. I'm going to go ahead right now and just ask everyone if you could keep your remarks to 3 minutes or less. We will get through this and get through it in 45 minutes. That would be great. As I always say, we put the time limit on these, not because we don't want to hear, all the thoughts and concerns and issues that residents have, but because we want to be respectful of everybody that's in this room and their time, as well as all of the council members that are up here on the dais. So I do ask you all to please be conscious of the time when you're up here making your remarks. If somebody else has gotten up here and said the same thing, you could get up here and say, I agree with Paul or Mary or whoever it is. That is allowed. It is also allowed to say, hey, my comments have already been heard. I don't need to make them. So with that, we will begin public comment. And I will give you, if you're close to the 3 minutes at 2:45, I'll just ask you to wrap up your key points in 15 seconds. So with that, last thing, I apologize if I mess up anybody's name as I'm reading them here. It looks like we have Ray Friedman first, and then Eric Bissett will be next, and then Steve Lansom. So Ray, if you want to come up, and again, if you each want to mention your name here in case I messed it up, but for people at home to know as well. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Ray Friedman, and I moved into the 2300 block of Greenwood about 2.5 years ago. I moved there because it's a nice, well-established, family-oriented area, and it's affordable, except for property taxes. My neighbors and I are fighting against the Howe organization, who proposed to put up a 3-story, 16-unit affordable housing building, 8 small 2-bedroom and 8 tiny 1-bedroom units. I thought the need in Evanston was for 3 to 4-bedroom units. I thought that the goal was to help Evanston residents and those in need of assistance in Evanston. I don't know how a tiny 1-bedroom apartment will help any family. There is currently a brick ranch-style 1-story home to be torn down and a 3-story 16-unit put in its place. There are so many issues with this project it boggles my mind. Only one entrance at the alley, next to the car wash, building size, traffic issues, safety issues, parking issues, zoning issues. I'm across the street and have 3 alleys. This 16-unit building would share one alley that is so narrow only one car can pass through at a time, with 23 other homes on both sides of that alley to share. I was told that because this one block on Dempster was zoned R5 some 59 years ago, that they can go ahead as planned, with some provisions made, and as long as they had the funding. I have read the zoning ordinance for R5 several times and have spoken with the zoning board and still don't understand how this building fits into this R5 zoning, which reads apartment buildings that characterize the traditional multiple-family housing development found in this district. All units found in this district are single-family, two flats, and townhomes. Isn't our R5 district from Fowler and Dempster to the alley at Pittner and Dempster? Myself and my neighbors are all for affordable housing and helping those that are less fortunate than ourselves. That is why we can't figure out why the city of Evanston is selling out the 24 affordable housing units at 831 Emerson and the 29 affordable housing units at 15 to 1800 Sherman. I think we need to have a set of guidelines that would be fair and equitable for everyone. Just looking at the dollar signs does not get the job done. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ray. Next up, we have Eric Passat, and then Steve Lampson, and then Connie Osselman will be after that.
I'm Eric Passett. I'm the owner of North Shore Apartments and Condos in Evanston. And I'm just here looking for the support of the council for A14. I know that's been brought up a couple times for our residents at our building. As some people know, our residents at the building at the 2544 Prairie Building cannot get a resident sticker. This whole block has been kind of excluded. So we've brought it up to, it's before for action. I'd appreciate the council support in this. So the other thing we did bring up at the traffic committee a couple months ago was that there's several parking lots in Evanston that I think are really underutilized. There's one, our office is on Custer, and right behind Custer and Main, there's a big parking lot right there. It's almost never used. I don't think anybody even knows it's there, and people complain that there's no parking when they come to our office, yet that whole parking lot is empty. There's another one on Main Street, exactly the same way. There's another one right near, downtown Evanston. There's another one right near the Rotary Center. It's completely unused. So I just think we could get some signs to, better advertise that, because, why have them if we're not being used? So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Eric. Next is Steve Lampson, then Connie Osselman, and then, I can't read it, but you live at you want to talk about 1726 Hinman. I'll see if I can get this name from someone else up here. Yes.
Hello. Hi, I'm Steve Lampson. I'm here just to speak in support of the A310, the widening of Callan Avenue. So I've lived in the 8th Ward for about 13 and a half years, own a condo there, and then the president of my condo association. And there, I park on the street, as do many. And over the years, since I first moved there, the parking's gotten very challenging. If you get home late from work in the evening, you can spend a long time driving around just trying to find a parking spot. And it's been very frustrating. I know a lot of my neighbors share the same frustrations, so something of their project to widen Callan Avenue and open up that many more parking spots would be a huge relief to us. And also, I know with more businesses looking to add to Howard, it would really help to have that extra parking available too for patrons and anyone else. So it would be a great help to our neighborhood if we could widen Callan Avenue and add more parking spots. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Steve. Connie, and then the next one that I can't really read this, maybe it's Gretchen, or maybe it begins with an S, and they want to talk about 1726.
Good evening. My name's Connie Usselman, and I live on Clyde Avenue, which is just one block east of Callan. I'm here to support the widening of Callan Avenue. I concur with everything that Steve said. One little observation I had is that on one side of Clyde Avenue, there's easily 100 units on the west side of Clyde, and there's 22 places to park on the street. So this is definitely a very highly densely populated area with extremely limited parking, and to widen Calvin would be very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. All right, come on up if you think it might be you. After that will be Matt Rogers and then Jack Weiss.
I'm Gretchen Fathauer, and I live at 1730 Hinman. I really don't want to see 1726 torn down. Many of my neighbors feel the same way. We feel that the value of our units will go down because the view that we have of a beautiful old home and beautiful old trees will all be gone. It'll be flattened, and then there'll be a commercial expansion from the Sigma Chi organization. I got an email from someone who lives in the building who couldn't be here tonight, and I'll read that. This old house was built by a famous Evanston architect and deserves to be landmarked. It fits in perfectly in the 1700 Hinman block and in the Lakeshore Historical District, and it's an old but venerable home. The owners, Sigma Chi, have let it decay since they wanted permission from the city to demolish it. I hope City Council grants it landmark status and doesn't reward Sigma Chi for its destruction. There's resentment in the building as well. We're paying top dollar on real estate taxes, but Sigma Chi, it was a very sweet deal. Anyway, that's it. I hope that you grant it landmark status so we can hang on to it. It's a beautiful old place.
Thank you, Gretchen. Matt Rogers. All right, we have Matt Rogers, Jack Weiss, and then Carmia Beatty.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Lyons. I come to speak tonight in favor of the widening of Callan Avenue. I live on Clyde, which is one block over, as someone else mentioned. I actually did a little more math than she did. There are roughly 300 units in that little corner of Evanston, which is cut off by the north by the Skokie Swift and to the east by the Metro tracks. There are 300 homes and about 100 parking spaces. Most of these homes were built high density. It's an R5 district. It's a very urban part of Evanston. And even with the city lot that's at the corner, which is lot 18, which provides another 50 spaces, we still are significantly challenged in being able to find any parking on the street after about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. So I would encourage your support providing parking for the residents of that part of Evanston. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Jack, then Carmia, and then John Lionberger.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I'm Jack Weiss. I'm an associate member of the Preservation Commission, president of Design Evanston, 50-year resident of Evanston, and a member of Landmarks Illinois. I urge the Council to accept the Preservation Commission's unanimous approval of the landmark status for 1726 Hinman. Landmarks Illinois also endorses that nomination. If the owner of Sigma Chi sells its property, landmark designation of 1726 Hinman is a powerful marketing tool. As a separate taxable property, owners of that property have access to numerous preservation tax benefits. Sigma Chi should understand that it's better to landmark 1726 now prior to selling, or the council should persuade Sigma Chi to accept landmark status as a part of the larger overall negotiation to be heard in the future. I yield the balance of my time to Jim Kilruss. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Next up, we have Carmia Beatty, and then John Lionberger, and then Ann Langen.
Hello, my name is Carmia Beatty, and I am the sister of the 12-year-old boy who got arrested for riding on the back pegs of a bike. And on July 14th on that day, I see my brother being put in the paddy wagon, and imagine I would be upset. And I went to go talk to the officer, and the reason that he gave me was he was riding on the back pegs of a bike. When have you ever heard someone getting arrested for riding on the back pegs of a bike? For obstructing traffic is what I heard, but he's not the one riding the bike. So where there's no ordinance for a kid who's on the back pegs of a bike? And it was disappointing to hear that as a reason, and trying to fight for my brother and saying, we'll let him out, he's not doing anything wrong, and nobody listening to me, and me being kind of pushed aside because, what, that's not a reason? It's not. You don't just arrest someone, and especially a 12-year-old, and put them through that kind of emotional state, and now he distrusts the police now because he feels like they're not making the right moves. And I feel like, we need to have better training, because that shouldn't be happening to kids, and that really shouldn't be happening to anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmia. All right, we've got John Lionberger. Again, I apologize, everyone, if I am mangling your names. Ann Langen, and then Jim Callcross.
Siri calls it Lionberger too, but it's Lionberger. Just so you know.
I'm in good company then with Siri.
Yeah, really. I'm here for 1726 Hinman that you granted per the unanimous recommendation of the Preservation Committee that you granted landmark status. It is my understanding that landmark buildings help not only anchor neighborhoods, but they also generally increase the value of the neighborhoods that they're in and for surrounding neighborhoods as well. Plus, landmark buildings are truly beautiful to look at. And so I just want to put my voice in the pile, and I will also yield the remainder of my time to Jim Callcross. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Ann?
Hi, good evening. My name is Ann Langen, and I live on Hinman Avenue, and I am here also in support of 1726 Hinman and having that be made a landmark status. So I would also like to yield my time to Jim. And again, it's a beautiful home and a notable architect. I specifically moved to this street, and if that building should go, it would be hugely upsetting. So thank you very much. Jim.
All right, thank you. All right, Jim, I still need you to do it in 3 minutes, Jim. But you guys are all doing great on the time. I got to say, I'm very, very impressed with how respectful people are being.
Mayor, City Council, thank you so much for your time. I'll try to be brief. So what we know 1726 Hinman was built by an architect who has dozens of credited works that are either National Historic Properties or City of Evanston landmarks, City of Chicago landmarks. We know 1726 Hinman was the architect's own home, not just an example of something he built, but we know it was his own home. We know 1726 Hinman is a tax-generating property for the city, and if it were to be torn down, the tax revenue would go down. So even if you do not value preservation, hopefully in times of budget crisis, you value tax dollars. We know 1726 Hinman was actually protected ahead of any other houses basically in Evanston, because before there were historic districts, your predecessors, City of Evanston officials and the Zoning Board of Appeals basically put special protections on this house. They passed an ordinance to protect this house, to preserve it as a single family. And they also forced the owner to basically enter into a recorded covenant that protects this house. So we know 1726 Hinman's a nice house. We know it was built by a good architect. We know the neighbors love it. We have 100% support. It's hard to get 100% support on topics in any town, including Evanston. We have 100% support. What we don't know is whether or not the property at 1726 Hinman trumps the owner's rights to be able to do what they want with that property. We've heard from the neighbors under testimony that they did things like stopping to clean the gutters while they continue to clean the gutters on their very own headquarters next door. So we know that a lot of the decay was actually caused by actions of the owner. And basically, we also know that they tried to tear the house down in some ways in the middle of the night, sneaking it past the city, even though there were protections on the home. And I brought those protections to the attention of the city officials. So we know all those things. We know that Landmarks Illinois, which is a very well-respected organization that protects buildings throughout the community, has come out in full support of this. We know there's support coming from as far away as the East Coast from museum directors. We know all these things. What we don't know, again, is owner's rights. But what we do know, and whether or not you value preservation, we know that preservation is, one, legal. The Supreme Court, Penn Station versus the City of New York, said that a city can basically create landmark status or preservation protection status for a property. So we know it's legal. Two, we know that the City Council is basically looking at a recommendation of the body that they picked, which is the Preservation Commission. And it was a unanimous resolution of the experts in this area. And those folks said that this is a building that should be saved. Again, going back to owner's rights, if you think about owner's rights, not everybody consents to preservation statutes. There's plenty of folks who don't in historic districts. They go through the procedures and the requirements, and what they get, what everybody in the city gets, is a more valuable town. You get people like Cecina Haley, who wrote a letter into the city clerk because she couldn't be here. She's traveling, but she lives across the street. She's testified before, who said, I picked this town and this area. I moved from Pasadena, California to be a professor at Northwestern and to teach engineering. And she did that because, one of the reasons is because it's a special town with historic neighborhoods. We know those neighborhoods create jobs. Go up and down any historic neighborhood Monday through Friday between 8 to 5 and count the number of contractor trucks you see on those streets. We know it increases property value, which increases tax revenue to the city. So we know all those things. We know it's legal. We know it's good for the city. We know that not every owner consents, but we know it's okay if they don't, because the greater good for the city is basically to protect these properties. So I gave a voice to the neighbors. Originally told my wife I thought this process would take me about 2 days. It's taken, I really said that, it's taken a little bit longer. But I encourage and urge everybody here, regardless of thoughts about preservation, regardless of any concerns you might have over owner consent, to just look at the facts of this situation. This is a house that has been protected, that should be protected. We have support from across the community. We have support from actually across the country on this property. And it is beneficial to Evanston in this case, and especially in the case of a house where your predecessors basically protected it. So you'd be overruling the Preservation Commission.
Thank you.
You'd be overruling the predecessors, and you'd be overruling all the supporters. So I hope you take that all into consideration. Thank you so much for extending my time.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. All right. I didn't do a good job going through the ones ahead. I've got Ian Beatty and Rob Beatty. I've got them both down here together. And then I've got Karen Courtwright and then PJ. I can't make out your last name, PJ.
My name is Ian Andrew Beatty. I live at 1008 Dobson Street. I'll never forget July 14, 2017, the day I got arrested. It was the first time in my life. Me, my friend Shay Shay, and Jaquise all wanted to go to the Starbucks on Sherman from the Burger King. Shay Shay was on the handlebars, and I got on the pegs, holding onto Jaquise's shoulders. I do realize now that that was a poor decision, but I did not know that it would get me arrested. Jaquise drove straight into traffic against the light, making two cars slam on the brakes and honk at us. Right after that, Shay Shay screamed, and I asked him, why the heck would you do that? After crossing, he told me he didn't care. Then, as we all walked in the Starbucks, the police followed us into the Starbucks, and once I figured out they were after us, I stopped, knowing that running away from the police would make it worse. I followed his command by coming with him. Once I figured he wasn't going to give us a talk, he was going to put us in the paddy wagon, I started questioning him, with the first question being, why am I going in that thing? The officer's response was, you went into the middle of traffic and put your life in danger and almost got hit by a car. Then I asked him if I could call my sister, and he said no. You are going to the station, and your parents are going to pick you up. I also asked the officer why he didn't arrest the one who was controlling the bike, and he said he ran away into the store. And that didn't make much sense to me because he was the one controlling the bike. And what was I supposed to do? Just get off the bike in the middle of traffic and then actually put my life in danger because that would have made the situation a lot worse. So, and now I kind of think a bit differently from the police because, I mean, I got arrested for being on the pegs of a bike, and that wasn't really reasonable to put me in a paddy wagon where I couldn't even stand up, and the lights were really dim, and for 10 minutes it was like pitch black in there, and it was kind of scary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, Acting City Clerk, and the council. I'm Rob Beatty. Most of you I know.
Just so everyone's aware, I'm going to recognize this as a separate speaker, Rob.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. 8th Ward resident, love Evanston. Heavy heart tonight. By the way, I'm a Citizens Police Alumni Association member. I was a board member for a while, but it was too much for my schedule. I just have a few questions for the council, for the chief. We met with the chief, my wife and I was here, and some supporters who are in the room. And I just want to say that it's not cool to arrest 12-year-olds. Just not a good thing. And we need to really think about this. I'm calm. I've been calm for a month. This is not a reaction to something. I slowly put the pieces together. I cooperated with the police. I'm friends with the policemen, and my son trusts, and I trust. If we didn't have police, there would be bedlam, okay? I realize and recognize that we need police. But why are we arresting 12-year-olds? After reviewing the video earlier today, and I would invite you to, if you haven't already, what did he do that was so egregious? If we have policies in place, we need to have policies in place for every child in Evanston. We need to have policies in place. If you're going to arrest Ian, you need to arrest everybody else. All the kids need to have the same set of rules. I was at a community meeting with Chief a few months ago, and he talked about the hazards of being a police. I just want you to recognize, and the city to recognize, what a hazard it is to be a black person, and especially a black male. It is a hazard. We live with this every minute of the day, and we think about things that no one else has to think about, like walking while black, driving while black, being in a job while black. What would it look like if we could have a situation where the police in our city would actually make an apology and say you were sorry for something? I'm a parent, and Lord knows I've made mistakes with my son, and I go, son, I'm sorry. Sorry goes a long way. Okay? Devon Reed, the Greenwell, Crosby, Ian Beatty, right along their lines. What do all of them have in common? They're people of color. What would it look like if we looked at changing policy on how we arrest or not arrest young juveniles?
Rob,
Then and only then.
I need to wrap
I'm
up in
wrapping.
15 seconds.
Then and only then can we call Evanston the most livable city. But tonight, it doesn't feel real good to live in Evanston.
Thank you. All right. We've got Karen Courtwright, PJ, and then Aiden Vernon.
I spoke last Monday night at the Human Services Committee meeting about this same matter, and I just want to review a few of those comments with you. I know you'll all get this matter on your desks in due course after there's the formal complaint process is completed. We desperately need high-quality and in-depth training of police officers who interact with citizens and understand implicit bias, because certainly most, if not all, of EPD officers are good folk, but just as surely are victims of our white supremacy culture and the unfortunate over-militarized police training they receive. These officers need to be trained until they develop actual empathy for the citizenry they serve. They need to be trained to talk with young people rather than grab them by the arm and place them in custody at 12 years of age. We all know that black children are seen as older and more aggressive than their white counterparts, and these implicit biases absolutely do contribute to the racial patterns of police contacts and arrests that we see here in Evanston. Until HSC, the city, and the police, every single one of them, understands this, it's foolish to talk about fixing our complaint process, and that's all the city has asked for so far. Let's get our priorities straight. Reduce resources deployed elsewhere if necessary to dedicate money to find and implement high-quality training. We have people all over this town who know how to deal with juveniles and middle schoolers, their social workers, their assistant principals, and lots of good parents, and I don't know why these resources can't be made available in the police department. I respectfully ask that you initiate a review of police policies regarding the interaction of police with children, regarding stop and frisk contacts, and regarding geo-based policing. These things can be addressed immediately, and they do not need to wait for the work of the citizen complaint review process. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. PJ Aiden, and then Jack Terrell.
Hello, I am PJ Wade, and I would like to speak. Hello, my name is Peter Wade, and I am a student at Haven Middle School. I've been an ice skater at the Robert Cron Center for around 3 years. I have seen how the skating community has benefited from the way the staff has welcomed everyone into the programs and the other activities. I am excited and thankful for the people that have spent hours of their time working to improve the current center and to get prepared for the new Robert Cron Center. We, the Boy Scouts, would love to help in any way with the process of working on the new center. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you, PJ. Aiden Verdon, and then Jack Terrell, and then the last speaker is Manuel Flores.
Hello, I am with Boy Scouts of America, and I am the SBL of our troop, which means I kind of run everything with our guys over there. And I just wanted to start out by thanking Mayor Haggerty, because before he was mayor, he visited us for a merit badge that we were doing, and he came out of his time, and he didn't really have to, and at 7 o'clock he went down to Haven Cafeteria, and he spoke to us, and he inspired us, and it was a really great thing that he did for us. I really wanted to thank you for that, and it's really great all that you aldermen do, and we just wanted to thank you for that. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Boy Scouts and what we are, and what we really are is trying to be model citizens. And so how we do that is we live by an oath and a law, and how an oath goes is, on my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, and to keep myself morally straight and physically strong. I believe one of the most important lines is always help other people at all times. I believe that's what we try to do at the most in Troop 929. We're always trying to help. We have a lot of service projects, and we really try to help out our community, and we're never trying not to help. And another way that we try to be model citizens is through our law, which is a Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And I believe the three most important things that come out of those is courteous, cheerful, thrifty, and clean. Because those not only show model citizenship, but it spreads model citizenship. And I think that is the most important thing, is spreading it. Because by being courteous and by maybe opening a door for somebody, it might make their day better and they might want to help someone out. I really think that spreading that citizenship throughout our community is a really important thing. Another thing is being cheerful. If you're smiling and you're having a good day and you are cheerful to other people, they will also be cheerful. And it never doesn't help to just be cheerful throughout your day, cheerful through service and cheerful through what you do for a living. Another thing would be thrifty. We're always try to be a model citizen is also to be thrifty and to save and be like good with money and stuff.
Aiden, I got to have you wrap it up in like 10 seconds.
Another thing is clean, and we try to stay clean and we look good, and that is one of our other important things.
I think that's a good way to end it. I think it's a good way. Thank you, Aiden, for coming. Thank you for the nice compliments. All right, two final speakers. We got Jack Terrell and then Manuel Flores.
I don't think I've ever been called Terrell before. It's Turville.
Turville. See? I told you, everybody gets a new name when they come up here, and I try to read
Well, it
these.
sounds good at least. Well, esteemed aldermen, assistant managers, and Mayor Haggerty, I come before you to illustrate the importance of scouting for the children of Evanston. Scouting is a great way to help parents grow their children into amazing, responsible adults. Scouting has definitely helped me grow into a mature teenager who can handle his responsibilities, lead groups, and talk comfortably in front of large groups. I feel that this came out from the Scout Oath and law, but especially the oath. You heard Aiden state those earlier. When I implemented the Scout Oath into my daily life, I saw dramatic differences in how my days went. The oath pushed me to help other people, and this improved my own life by knowing people had a better day because of my small actions, such as holding the door, picking up a pencil, or just helping them with their work. Scouting gives young children an introduction to so many possible careers through merit badges, seeing as almost every single one has a requirement asking you to research different possible jobs in that badge's topic. To list just a few of the more than 135 merit badges, there's entrepreneurship, engineering, astronomy, inventing, journalism, medicine, and programming. All of these opportunities aren't available through any other organization, and Scouting's highest rank, the Eagle Scout, can help kids get into these careers. If you can put Eagle Scout onto your resume, this shows potential employers that you're a hard worker who will stay committed and be willing to learn. But before you can get to that, you must become an Eagle Scout, and one of the hardest requirements for that is the service project. One of our recent Eagles who made 2 wooden chests that were then put in at the community gardens outside of the Ecology Center on the north and south side, where they are currently being used to store tools for those who use the gardens. These projects have an effect all over our community, and as we have more and more scouts reach that point in their Boy Scouting career, those projects will keep on growing and giving back to the community. That is all.
Thank you, Jack Turville. All right. And our last speaker is Manuel Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I'm here as the attorney representing the Sigma Chi Foundation. Just again, I've had the opportunity to address all of you, but just to reinforce some very critical, important points. The Sigma Chi Foundation is a charitable organization. It is a non-for-profit institution. We're not engaged in development. We're not looking at this as an opportunity to reap money at the expense of the community. I also want to remind everyone here that we are members of the Evanston community. We are very proud of having been a longtime member of this community. Many of you know that we actually provided the Harley Mansion to the Evanston community for everyone, for all members of the community to benefit. And that is how we find ourselves at Hinman Avenue. And what we're asking for is consideration and really be engaged in the process that we had already petitioned your city when we had submitted paperwork to go forward in the demolition of the property. At no time did Sigma Chi Foundation try to hide the ball. I also take issue with a representation made earlier this evening that Sigma Chi Foundation somehow has intentionally tried to harm the property. That is false. I also take issue, frankly, with the representation made to you that we were trying to violate the demolition order. That is absolutely false. We have played by the rules at all times. We are a proud and contributing member of this community. We recognize that you have a difficult decision to make this evening, but I would just like to reinforce this final point, Mr. Mayor, that there is a very fundamental difference between the zoning code and also the landmarking. Have you heard representations here earlier today and frankly also submitted to you in writing? Yes, people are concerned about the property and future uses of that property. That's why you have a zoning code. To use landmark to control the property when landmarking is not warranted, I submit to you that we are now encroaching and violating property rights. I also want to reinforce that here we are potentially looking at a slippery slope. It's a situation where, yes, under your own code, you permit residents to file a petition. But that is a very unique situation when you take a look at historically how properties have been landmarked in this community. We were never given the opportunity to address neighbors. Someone just filed a petition after we had already informed the city of Evanston of what our plans were, and after the city of Evanston had already begun the process. As you know, there's a lengthy process whenever you're looking at demolition of property. We followed the rules, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, and we just respectfully request that you deny the petition to landmark and that we submit that there's a better alternative to that through your zoning ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody that came before the City Council tonight. I'm just really, really impressed with how serious people take the issues around here, how articulate people are, and thoughtful people are with their comments, and how much people care. And I know on behalf of everybody up here, we really appreciate that. So we'll move on to the next order of business, which is the special order of business. We have 3 items today in special order of business. The first one is SP1. 2017 budget recommendation, and this is for discussion. Deputy City Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, in your packet is a memorandum that is an ongoing discussion regarding potential changes in direction for the 2017 budget. I'd like to point out that in previous discussions we have addressed nearly all of the issues, and the purpose of this memo was to follow up on some final items. We've received a lot of feedback, which I would be happy to hear from aldermen and from all members of the council regarding that feedback. The 2 main issues in this memo, and I will call that Kimberly Richardson and Erica Storley were key contributors to the memorandum, and they can discuss anything in detail. However, the key components are the issues of a potential furlough day, which we've identified at approximately $120,000, and also then changes in parking revenues. I think the memo speaks for itself and would welcome council direction regarding the memorandum. And again, we will then move on with just monitoring the 2017 budget and engaging in the 2018 budget preparation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lyons. Alderman Braithwaite, I apologize. I think your light went on just before the city manager spoke.
Right, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Beatty family just walked out of the council chambers, and I hope that his son is still here. It's, you know, we've dealt with these issues in the past, and every time I hear something along these lines, particularly given what we are experiencing on the national level under this new president, I don't know if Mr. Beatty and his son are still here. I may not be able to apologize on behalf of the city, but as a representative, I do want to offer an apology. I don't know what I will see when I look at this video, but all of us who serve on council, we all have children, and I could not imagine in my worst nightmares having to deal with this situation. I think it's safe to say, Mr. Beatty, I don't think I would be able to approach it with your demeanor, and I thought that your son was incredibly poised. So on behalf of myself and anyone else who would like to join me, I would like to offer an apology to your son. Whatever the circumstances that led through this, I'm sure we'll sort them out, but under no situation does this even begin to live up to Evanston standards that we have as a community. And so to your son and yourself and your family, my apologies.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did want to just say a couple things on SB 1. I noticed that there's on page 13 an update on the Airbnb tax, but I don't see any reference to the bed and breakfast tax that Alderman Suffredin referred to at the last meeting. The other thing is that I asked the city manager to provide some information about potential revenue. I'm on page 12 right now. Potential revenue if we should move to increase the hours for parking meters and garages to include Sundays. And I did get back some information today. I'd ask Erica Storley to come up and just tell us a little bit about what revenue this would create.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Assistant Manager Lyons, and stand-in clerk Richardson. I'm Erica Storley, Deputy City Manager. Yes, on Friday, Alderman Fisk had asked for some figures on what potential revenue would look like should we decide to, or should the council direct us to implement Saturday or Sunday enforcement hours of both meters and surface lots and parking garages. So we put together some rudimentary figures, and I would say these are rudimentary figures. We did not have a lot of time to really drill down, but I think that we are fairly close in what we've come up with. So I'll just share what I had shared with her and the council via email earlier, and that is that if we did decide, if the council direction was to charge for Sundays just in the parking garages alone, keeping the first hour free as it stands today, potentially $450,000 a year in revenue. If we decide to charge for Sundays but eliminate the first hour free, that would be almost $500,000 in additional revenue. Garage revenue, keeping Sundays free, eliminating the first hour for the 6 days that there is enforcement, $277,000 a year. And then the question of should the council direct staff to implement Sunday payment at parking meters and surface lots throughout the city, approximately $400,000 to $450,000 in revenue. Now, this does not take into account additional expenses that would be incurred for parking enforcement. We would need some further time to flush that out, but these are rudimentary figures that could be utilized should the council decide to go in that direction.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy City Manager. Alderman Fleming.
So I would like to address the, one, that's off subject, but to support Alderman Braithwaite and just extending my personal apologies to the Brady family and saying that I know that as a city council member, I hold our police force to a very high standard. And I hope that what we'll find in our investigation is that, as Ms. Courtwright said, maybe there's more training, and that's what we find we need. But I am committed to making sure that we do a thorough investigation, which does ideally include an apology for the behavior that was displayed to your son. I would like to speak about the furlough day. So I would like that, and I think that the city manager from this memo is communicating that that is our last resort. However, even in considering that, I would like us to look at potentially moving that day up earlier from the proposed day of November 21st to maybe even like, I think I had November 11th here. When I look at the November 24th furlough day, and then I look at the pay period of which people would lose their day of pay that's very close to the Christmas holiday. And so for workers who are living more of a check-to-check style budgeting, I don't want to have a furlough day impede on their ability to celebrate Christmas. As well, that check will come out on December 1st, and for those families, again, who are just making it financially, I don't want that to impede on their ability to pay their rent and such. So I would like us to consider moving that day further up in November so that we don't affect people. However, I do support that being a very last resort for us to do.
Thank you, Alderman Fleming. Alderman Wilson, and then it'll be Alderman Rainey.
Thank you. As far as the parking issues, I am pretty disinclined to take away the free Sunday arrangement, but I did see a notation about the prospect of equalizing the meter rates across the city, which would bring in not quite as much, but a significant amount. So I'd like us to possibly consider that as an option, and leaving the Sundays free. I do wish we would revisit the idea of increasing the fine amounts. I know that the APW committee rejected that before it was presented to council, but I still feel like that is, to use, I think, the city clerk's word, even though he didn't agree with the application of it, but I think it's one of the least regressive ways to try to find this money. So hopefully APW might be willing to revisit that as a possible source of the funds.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Wilson. Alderman Rainey.
On the Alderman Fisk's suggestion, isn't the parking meter money, isn't that a restricted fund? Doesn't that money go into the parking fund? Wouldn't we have to make a special provision to use that money in the general fund? I mean, don't we use parking money for parking lots?
Mr. Lyons?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Alderman Rainey. Historically, we have used parking fine revenue where the PEOs, the parking enforcement officers, are, and that's in the general fund, fines and fees, and then treated the actual fees generated. Those have gone into the parking fund just like water fees go into the water fund, so trying to treat them in that manner. Recently, with the change in our enforcement capabilities and with going to the electronic meters, our fines have dropped precipitously, and we did in the last budget increase the transfer where we're looking at fees going back to the general fund as a makeup of those fines that were there, because our goal has always been to have parking compliance, not generate ticket revenue. So as we've now started to reach that goal, we're finding a gap in the general fund. So the idea of using parking fees in the general fund has not been a policy direction in the main, but we have started down that slope.
Okay. All right, so that's one thing. The second thing I want to talk about is the issue of the furlough days. And that goes also to the issue of the parking fine, raising the parking fines. I will not support increasing parking meters. However, I will support the reducing the number of tickets, unpaid tickets, to initiate the boot. And I will only do that because we are going to initiate an amnesty program. And one of the things I want to say to the people in this community and in Rogers Park and in Skokie, if you have outstanding tickets, and I'm talking about 1 or 2 or 3 outstanding tickets, the way this amnesty program is going to work, you're going to get a free ride. You come in and you pay those tickets, and I'm going to promote this, I'm telling you, because at the end, on October 1st, the boot people are going to be out looking for you if you haven't paid your ticket, and I am going to support 100% the application of that boot on 3 unpaid parking tickets, because you're getting a freebie for the next over a month to pay those tickets without any late fee, without anything, and you can start over new. And I mean, there are people out there with 5 and 6 and 7, 10 parking tickets that have $100 worth of late fees, and you're going to get all that wiped off. You just come in, and maybe you can even make other deals. Just pay those. There are taxpayers, listen to me, there are millions and millions of dollars of unpaid parking tickets. 6 million, 8 million. Erica?
2.
No, it's over 6 million, is it not?
Yeah, why don't we have Ms.
Hey, wait, this is a huge amount of money. How many?
It's $4.8 million going back to 2010.
All right. But is there, with the late fee, did we not come up with a $6 million number at one point? No?
Not
All right.
to my knowledge.
You know
but
what?
Still a lot of money.
Wait, 4 point what?
4.8.
$4.8 million can really fix this budget. To me, that's really real money. I don't know about you, but we're talking about $200,000, $4.8 million. If a quarter of those people pay, I mean, that's a lot of money. So let's get those tickets paid. You owe it to your community to pay those tickets. You can start fresh. You won't get the boot. Your neighbor won't get the boot. Let's pay the tickets. We're not going to increase. Otherwise, we might have to increase. We might have to increase fines. And I promise not to do that. But don't push it. I just think it's the greatest way. You already owe the money. Pay it.
Hear, hear. All right. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
one
Mayor.
more thing. We do have a slide presentation on the amnesty program if there's time.
Yeah, let's go ahead and see that.
I would. Just a couple of quick comments. Alderman Fleming, I would agree. I'm not in support of the furlough day. I hope that if that's something
You're not
we
in
have
support of the amnesty?
No, furlough.
Oh.
Furlough.
I'm
furlough.
not either. But if we get people to pay their tickets, we won't have to have a furlough.
Right there with you. Right there with you. A few more
You
comments.
owe it to the people who work hard in the city.
Yeah.
Pay your tickets.
Gotcha. So again, not in favor of the furlough day. I think that should be a last resort. Definitely supportive of the amnesty program. And one of the conversations that I had with our assistant city manager, Mr. Lyons, is I'd also like to look at what other fines and fee opportunities are out there for us to recoup dollars. That's real money that's out there. And one of the areas that I would like to shine a light is our administrative adjudication and looking at the property fines, looking at any other citations, whatever is out there, Marty, and to come back and let's see. I think in terms of the amnesty program that I am very supportive. Alderman Rainey, I'm a little bit concerned about reducing the number from 5 to 3 because any household that has 2 cars, those vehicles are tied together. And so if you have kids...
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't approve of that.
Well, but then that's important that we specify
Separate.
that because...
Separate.
So for those of you that don't know, they count those together. So if you have 2 vehicles under the same roof
They're licensed separately.
that are...
They're licensed separately.
Well, maybe you can answer this question. So 2 vehicles under the same roof registered to the same person. I know this. I have 2 vehicles that are registered in my name, one my wife drives. Those are counted all together. So I'm just saying there's situations like that. In Alderman Rainey, just this past year, we experienced a situation with someone who had serious medical issues that could not move his vehicle, and because of multiple tickets, he had been booted. And this, so again, I think that
I didn't
going
know about that.
right,
I
right.
would agree
So
with you.
I'll make my point, and then we'll get your answer. Again, I think the 3 is a little bit aggressive, and I would be very interested to see what happens with the amnesty program. The other thing I would like to direct staff to do, and I'll use the word in a pilot program. I don't recall the numbers from our last meeting, but I think for the folks who are out of state and also outside of Evanston, that I would love to see what we could do to be more aggressive. My own experience last in May, speeding ticket in Grand Rapids, Michigan for 150 quickly turned into 236 in less than 3 months. My license was suspended. I had to pay that ticket before I drove back. And so if we can look at aggressive measures for people that are out of state, I'd also, on a pilot program, I'd like for staff to come back with that as well.
All right, so let's go to Jill to give us a overview of the amnesty program, and then when we come back, we'll go to Alderman Fisk.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, Alderman, Assistant Manager Lyons, Acting Clerk. Jill Velan, Parking Division Manager. All right, I got it all out. So to Alderman Braithwaite's point, if it is registered to the same, if all the cars are registered under your name, they all attached together. So if you have if you have a household, you have 3 cars, they're all registered under one owner, that's when it counts. So we'll have to go back and look at that and see what the ordinances are, if there's any applicable state laws, et cetera. I understand what you're saying about that. So we'll go back and look at that.
Thank you.
I just have a couple of slides for the amnesty program. Just to clarifying points, this is really from your memo, but just to make sure for the public, we are proposing that the amnesty program will begin on Wednesday. We understand that we're trying to get this up and running as soon as possible. Notices will go out, but it won't be for probably about 10 days. What we will be working with to get out there is that you don't have to have a notice to come in. You can come in to the Civic Center. The staff does have the ability to accept your citation amount without and remove the late fee. So we can start that without receiving the notice. That's why we can start it right away. All additional fees beyond the original citation amount, is what we were discussing, have been waived. And this will apply to any citations that have had late fees or other types of administrative fees attached. So in the past, we did, when we did the program, we set a time limit parameter. We're not having that time limit parameter. We're opening it up to anyone for the next 6 weeks or so. No late fees.
But it's parking citations.
Thank you, I'm sorry, parking citations.
Not property maintenance, this is strictly parking.
Thank you for clarifying that. So yes, parking citations. I looked at the outreach measures before, because one of the questions was, what did we do before? And we now have better social media options. We have 311 messaging, which is a little bit, that we can send out information to. We've been collecting emails from people who've been opting in for email notifications when they've been renewing their vehicle stickers. So that is another option available to us that wasn't available the last time we ran the program. And the last time we ran the program, we sent the notices out through the collection agency that we employ, so it went on their letterhead. I kind of looked at that, and I've talked with them. We're actually going to be doing it through the processing side this time, which allows us to put it out on with the city logo, so people will know it's coming from the city. And that's what also allowed us to have the larger time frame, because previously we only allowed people with 6 months or older tickets till like 2006. It was just a snapshot in time. Now it's any tickets that are on the books. So that's my snapshot of what it's going to be. Any feedback or direction, we can certainly look at whatever you would like.
Mr. Lyons?
I would just like to follow up on some issues that are not necessarily clear. If we start on the 16th and you got a ticket a week ago, your late fee is waived. If you're in the late fee period, there is no, once we start, all the late fees are waived for the 45-day period, and that's not a bad thing. We will get, but we do have some revenue that will leave because of no late fees, but that's why staff has been conservative so far, talking at a lower dollar amount overall. But this will, with our outreach efforts, when I think of what we did 6 years ago, 7 years ago with this, we have so much greater capabilities in outreach, and hopefully we will get a much larger response. That's our goal, and that helps us in a lot of these other areas as far as budget, because this is a general fund revenue. The ticket fines would be general fund. And I did want to follow up on a couple of comments that Alderman Braithwaite had just on parking still, if I may, Mr. Mayor. We are one of the only communities that I'm aware of that don't have a resident, non-resident differential. I've worked in 2 communities that had parking permit on, and they didn't have large decks like we do, but they had surface lots along the metro lines. And on a monthly or quarterly basis, resident, non-resident differentials are fairly standard because you're recognizing a property tax contribution from a resident. So, and those can be anywhere from 10 to 30% difference. Did Oak Park have resident, non-resident?
Yes.
So now we have our universe of it's fairly common, and there's not a lot of pushback. Non-residents do understand right away what's going on. So if we're looking moving forward on a resident, non-resident, that is something that will not impact residents, driving them out of a garage or out of a parking, because I'd certainly recommend not changing the resident rate, just raising the non-resident rate. And if I had, I hit the start date on this, and I did have one more follow-up on Alderman Fleming's budget discussion request she had. And that would be just the end of the budget discussion, and throw it back open for council. It's just that I provided salary information from both Alderman Rainey and Alderman Fleming requests. And I just wanted to, that's at your table if you're looking at what are these tables. Those are salaries for the directors and number 2s, and then the lowest paid 50 employees, just as a FYI if we're looking at salary costs.
All right.
And we wanted to finish, I'm sorry, I didn't. Yes. So.
Yeah, so let's, we'll stay on this amnesty program. Alderman Rainey.
I have one more question. Is there something where if you have so many tickets, we submit something to the Secretary of State and you get pulled over by the cops and they look at your driver's license and they say, oops, your driver's license has been suspended because you have traffic tickets? Or are those moving by, I don't know.
Yes, once you reach a certain number
of
parking tickets, we are able to submit that to the state and have a license suspended.
How many is that?
Thank you, 10
And
citations.
do we do that?
We do that.
We do that. Can you tell us how many people have 10 parking tickets?
I cannot, but I will get that
I think
information.
we ought to get in touch with those people right away.
But after 5, you're eligible for the boot, so oftentimes you'll be found with the boot and you don't reach that.
Right.
But I will get that number and make
But
sure the council
I'll bet
gets
we
it.
have some.
Thank you. Alderman Sarfordine.
Is there any intention to add credit reporting?
We are investigating that. There's been, we're making sure that we're following up with all applicable laws, and it's our intention to follow whatever the parameters are for local, for state and federal laws in order to, we're going to move forward with whatever. That's part of the memo. Okay.
Thank you. Alderman Fleming.
I had 2 suggestions or things I wanted to make sure are happening, which probably they are. One, that our materials are translated into Spanish.
Okay.
And then 2, this might be, well, if you're, hopefully there's flyers and such, because I have some ward meetings I'd love to take this to. But then 2, I'm thinking about our community picnic that draws a lot of people this coming Sunday. And that might be, we have a City of Evanston table there. That might be great to have flyers in Spanish and English, and even if we can have some kind of payment system there. We have technology now. Maybe we can drag a computer out there. People can pay as they're at the party.
Well, we will look and see what's,
I mean, I think if we're trying to get some money, we got to go where the people are. We got to take the money when they are offering it.
Think
And
about
our
the peace
city-
of mind they would have paying their tickets.
Well, I'm
right
thinking
there.
about people who are can come on Sunday, but maybe can't come during city hours to pay. And I don't know how this will, because I know you can pay your tickets online, but if they don't necessarily have all their citation numbers with them, is there a way that our computer system I can put my name in and it pops up all the tickets I have so I can pay them online without having to remember citation numbers from 2 years ago or whatever it is?
Yes.
thank
Yes?
you.
Okay, great.
I'm not totally familiar with all the systems.
No,
Thank you.
if we have name and address, we can look up water bill, look up a variety of things. Now, whether or not I can get it working in the parking lot by Sunday,
I think you can do it. We just need a swipe. We need a square.
we'll get working on it.
Or Marty, we just staff someone in the collector's office and direct them to walk up the steps. That would be the easiest way.
Thank you, Jill. And you're doing a great job with lots of information for being on the job for 2 weeks or whatever it is now. Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, Jill, could I?
You're back.
I may have a question for you, but also, I think we should also, piggybacking on what Alderman Fleming was saying, we should have people handing out flyers at the farmers market, because that gets all of our farmers markets get a wide variety of people there, and it would pass the word out pretty quickly. You don't have to have a desk or anything there, just encouragement.
We have a table already there. People have money.
They do have money, but I'm not sure that we could get a mobile, whatever Marty can do and the IT folks can do.
We'll investigate and see what opportunities
Jill,
we can come
do
up with.
people know, do your officers that go around and ticket people, do they know through the technology that they have whether that vehicle has outstanding parking tickets?
Yes.
And, okay, so if they do, then that's also an opportunity, right, to also drop a flyer or something else with that ticket, because we know you already have outstanding ones, that we've got this amnesty program you pay within the next 45 days.
Yes, that's something we did in the past, so it didn't make it on the new list, so we
Okay, but
certainly
that would be
will-
part of it.
yeah.
Terrific.
Yes.
You're a recidivist.
Yeah.
I have a couple
Sure.
more questions. At the risk of angering our neighbor, what can we do to capture the ticket revenue for Northwestern students who may live here, who may bring a car here, accumulate tickets, and then leave? I'd like us to find out what other communities do who have universities that, and whether they're able to capture that revenue from someone who lives in Evanston and has a Pennsylvania plate and who gets a couple $100 worth of tickets and then drives away on graduation day.
So two things that we will be doing this time is, the first is we have a process that we will pay for through the service provider, that they go out to search for new addresses. So they don't necessarily, it's not just the address that we have on file, they run and get that. The second thing is we are going to be reaching out to Northwestern to see if they can partner with us and sending out information about the amnesty program.
Well,
So-
I think the amnesty program, but I'm also thinking about, I'm sure Northwestern doesn't let their students graduate who owe Northwestern parking tickets. And so I think that would be terrific if they would not let their students graduate who owe the City of Evanston parking fines.
So I will put that on the list to investigate for the future. I don't know if we can do it as part of this, but certainly an idea to investigate.
Thanks.
Mr. Lyons?
And Alderman Nguyen, members of council, I would stress again the issue of the credit bureau. The credit bureau is what we were asked to stop doing several years ago because of its effectiveness in what I would say too much of a surprise fashion. We need to do a great job of making sure that everyone understands that you could be turned over to a credit bureau, but a credit bureau can stop a transaction in Pennsylvania as well as it can stop a transaction here, meaning that the unpaid parking ticket here can have an impact on a credit rating out in Pennsylvania, and that will have the impact on the Northwestern student and the parent thereof if it's something that's going on to the credit rating. It produces results. We just have to, I think, work through with staff and the council about our procedures, because the issue that will come forward will be transfer stamps, that a closing is held up for a $10 parking ticket. And that's what, and when we ask you to move forward with the increased collection processes to help our revenues, that's something that we do want to consider. Many communities do that, and but it's advertised that you will be sent to a credit bureau. I think times have changed since the last time we've done this, and I think that everyone is much more savvy about their own credit rating than 10 years ago. So we would like to consider that as one of our most effective tools, but it does have, it will create a response.
Okay, thank you. So we've had a lot of discussion, obviously, about the budget recommendations. I just noticed a light go on with Alderman Ravel, and I know you haven't had a chance to comment on this, and then I want to see if we can't wrap this up with some direction to the city.
That was kind of where I was headed, because it sounds as though everybody is really excited about the amnesty program and a lot of great ideas about how we can make this really successful, and so successful that we're all hoping that the furlough program doesn't need to be put into place. And I think the other idea that I certainly responded really positively to was your suggestion about the sort of the two-tier parking rates for residents and non-residents. But I assume that would take a while to put into effect, and that might be something more for our 2018 budget. Is that?
We could actually bring an ordinance back as quickly as possible. That's not something that's dependent upon a fiscal year. We would just have to provide notice. In some cases, we have quarters already sold, so we would not change any of those. So the effective date might be a little bit farther, but we'd rather get started now so that we could have as quick and an effective date as possible.
Okay, well then I think I personally would like to see us move forward with that.
On that issue, I would just like to say I would certainly like to see the council move forward in a cautious manner that allows businesses and others to certainly comment on this issue. I can tell you, as a business owner who has employees that are downtown that park in the garages, I mean, this would really be an impact, right? To all of a sudden say, hey, you're going to pay 20% more, 30% more than, what I pay here, since I happen to live in Evanston. I think there's a lot of businesses that might find themselves in that. So I would just caution that we make sure there's robust debate on that. We've really heard, all sides on that. Would you like to, Alderman Ravel, because you brought it up, would you like to put forward a motion to the city to move forward with the amnesty program?
Yes. So I move that we move forward with this amnesty program as described in our discussion this evening.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. SB1 was a good discussion and is done for now. We'll move on to SB2, which is the 2016 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Mr. Lyons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Tonight is not my night to talk about the comprehensive annual financial report. This is your night to speak with your hired auditor. And tonight we have partner Dan Berg from Sikich, who is here to address you regarding the audit process and the 2016 comprehensive annual financial report both. And since I know we're running a little long, Mr. Berg, would you, I'll let you take it away, but first I would like to also recognize Andy Villeman, our accounting manager, is here tonight in case we get into the weeds on anything, and Andy was instrumental in completing the comprehensive annual financial report this year. Mr. Berg.
Thank you, Marty. I too would like to recognize staff, Andy in particular, and also Melita and Ashley King. Not only did they do an outstanding job preparing for our audit, this is our second year of doing the city's audit. It went much more smoothly this year than it did in our first year. First year audits are always difficult and harder on staff because of the amount of information and, quite frankly, training to describe the way the city does business to us so that we can document it properly. The city also wrote the report this year using their New World ERP system and a module that comes with it. So a great deal of effort went into that by Andy and Melita as well, and we appreciate those efforts. You'll see in the council communication and the management letter, a number of our comments from the prior year have been implemented or in the process of being implemented, and the new comments were minimal. So compliments to staff on that. The most important thing you pay us for is our opinion that appears in the comprehensive annual financial report. We're happy to say that we gave the report what it's commonly referred to as a clean opinion. We call it an unmodified opinion. It's the highest, best opinion the city can get on these financial statements. It simply says that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position and results of operations. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. We still owe the city one deliverable, which is the comptroller's report that gets filed with the State of Illinois Comptroller's Office, posted to their website. It's due by the end of this month, so we'll certainly get on that and get that back to the city. And then we have a city council communication, required communication. Apparently, perhaps the city council only got the management letter and not that, so I'll be in the office tomorrow and make sure that gets emailed to staff to distribute to the city council immediately.
Thank you.
With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about the process or about the results, the work product that you have before you, or anything else that might be on your mind with regards to the audit.
Thank you. And thank you for your team's work on this. In terms of the material weaknesses, I think you laid out six, I think 6 material weaknesses. Are there, any in here in particular that concern you and that we, the city council members, should be particularly focused on?
The very first one we discussed during last year's audit and discovered it last year. It's our understanding that not only that has been corrected, but additional steps are being taken as we speak in the coming months to bring in additional software that will allow the cash receipting process to more seamlessly track with the ERP system and should decrease the reconciliation time and increase the quickness and the accuracy of posting those receipts to the general ledger. That's probably the one that we were most concerned about.
Okay. All right.
Mayor Hagerty?
Yeah, Mr. Lyons.
One of the things that, as Mr. Berg pointed out, what we did this year is what we could do. We improved our policies, went back through all of our actual practices during the end of, through 2017, so that by the time the auditors came in and looked at everything, they could show that we had made operational changes. On tonight's agenda, you had the agenda item to bring in passport/citation management for a variety of improvements in our parking collection efforts. And also noted in that memo was in September that staff would like to come forward to the council with a recommendation of a accounts receivable/cash receipting system that will also address the auditor's concerns, but also, as noted in the report tonight, improve the resident experience. Right now, when we get a deposit, it's difficult to go back and look where the deposit is because all of our systems are not integrated the way we would like to since the UO system was no longer kept up. We are in the process, our goal is to bring in a consolidated cash receipting and accounts receivable program that would improve our total revenue collection and overall not be a cost increase, including the actual purchase of software.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Alderman Rainey?
You're probably not the person to discuss this with totally, but perhaps with Marty and you. Could you give us the status of our collectors department? Is it fully operational with full-time city staff, or is it temp staff? What's the story there?
When we were here last year in February, we found that the revenue manager position was open.
Right.
And
That's what we started talking about too.
right, and that was corrected during 2016. I'm not sure what the current status
What's
is.
happening right now? Do we have a real life collector that is a city employee, not a fake collector?
Madam, I'm sorry, Alderman Rainey, members of council, Alex Thorpe has been our collector for a year. We have also staffed up. We've put in another customer service representative. And then as a part of the reorganization with the clerk's office, one of the deputy clerks was converted so that we now have that position as a customer service representative handling the transfer stamps and passports, and then they're also being trained to handle other business as well. So we will still have part-time, seasonal, I will call it, help for wheel techs, so that we have plenty, so we have people available, and we don't have to do everything via overtime. But we are, while we have a vacancy, thanks to the reorganization, we also are fully staffed.
So, all right, so your answer is, in the collector's office, the people we have working there right now are City of Evanston employees?
Yes.
Okay, all right. It's good to know.
Well, let me
and they do now, as opposed to operating out of the service being provided in the city clerk's office, the service of transfer tax stamps is now out of the collector's office,
Correct.
as is passports.
Correct.
Out of the clerk's office.
Out of the
No,
excuse me.
those are,
collector's office.
passports and transfer stamps are out of the collector's
City
office.
collector's office, as is the wheel tax, as it always has been. Okay.
So let me ask another question. You've heard the conversation tonight about our amnesty program, that we got $4.8 million in back fines that haven't been paid to us. I mean, you work for lots of different communities. You do lots of different audits and so forth. Do you have any perspective on that in terms of whether, Evanston's collection and collection rate is appropriate, or whether we're, delinquent, so to speak? No pun intended.
The problem, generally speaking, with most of our clients is collecting not so much from the people that live in town as for the people that visit town and pile up tickets, quite frankly. And it's a fine line between chasing those shoppers or people that work in town away by being more aggressive. It becomes, quite frankly, a political decision. As far as how you're stacking up against others, you have a great deal more parking than most of our clients on the street, garages, etc. So that ramps it up, just the quantity of billable parking spaces that the city has. You're more comparable to, say, Oak Park, for instance, but I believe that you have even more parking spaces than they have. They have similar issues with collections on tickets.
Mr. Mayor, if I can change your question so that Mr. Berg might be able to answer it also. In their auditing, they audit our revenues and expenses according to the way we collect them. And in the case of parking tickets, we run on a cash basis. When we write a parking ticket, we do not call it revenue until it's collected. That's opposed to a water bill. When we issue a water bill, we call it revenue because we are certain that it will be collected. So Mr. Berg would not have been, any of his predecessors or him would not have done a receivables report on our parking tickets because they only become revenue once collected. And I think that's something that I don't believe Oak Park does, where they book their, not many book their tickets as receivable. It becomes nightmarish on the accounting side. Now I'll let you speak to it.
Well, then, quite frankly, it's an accounting issue. You have many, many, many small items as opposed to larger items, and you have more control over a water bills collection than you do over parking. So it becomes a collectability issue and an estimation of what percentage of those would be collectible. and therefore many of our clients choose to be on the cash basis for those, rather than have a very large receivable offset by an allowance for collectability and then show bad debts expense.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion on the comprehensive annual financial report? Okay, seeing none, this is for action to accept and place on file. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this is accepted and placed on file. All right, thank you very much for your help in speaking tonight. SB 33 is Robert Crown Community Center update. An important priority here in Evanston. And Mr. Lyons, would you like to start the discussion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We also have members from the Friends of Robert Crown here, and I will ask them to come up as soon as I go through the discussion. We also have Lawrence Hemingway here, who's very much involved with the program. Three quick slides. Where are we at? And I know that the council is very interested. We've been talking a lot about capital, and as I will note, or as is noted in the memo in the packet, we're going to talk a lot more about the next steps in September when we look at the Woodhouse Tanucci Architects' next phase of the project. But where are we at? $8.8 million. That means if we have $600,000 added, it will be matched by another $600,000, and we will have reached the $10 million goal. The committee, Friends of Robert Crown, all feel that 10 million is going to be reached and surpassed because the next phase will produce construction drawings which produce an even more definitive look at the facility, which can in turn bring in more gifts. So I will not say what the upper limit is. I know that when we come in September and talk about preliminary budgets, we will project what we think total gift giving may be and total commitment is needed to fund a project that we've been defining. One of the things that I don't want to give short shrift. That red line is a hard one to go after. This is the first time the city of Evanston has been in this situation, raising funds. So I think that we are doing a good job as far overall. If you'd have asked me a year ago, would we have $10 million? I probably would have been a little, I'm the CFO, I might have been a little skeptical, and that's a testament to all of the fundraisers and the job they've done, and also the council. The council has been very supportive. So where are we? As I noticed, I've talked about that. One of our key steps that we will be doing, we've been working with CCS and Associates. We are starting to look at transition. And as noted in the memo, different departments do support 501c3s. The finance division will support the Robert Crown 501c3 as far as pledge redemption and administrative duties in the very near future. Then also in September, I haven't nailed down which date. It'll either be the 11th or the 25th. Woodhouse Tanucci and Associates will come forward with their final report on the schematic design, show the council what has come about from all stakeholder meetings, public meetings. We had our last public meeting on August 3rd, so we couldn't make this night with a Woodhouse Tanucci proposal and results. So it had to slip to September 11th. So that will be coming. And then another project that will move forward is, as I've noted in the memo, is how will we construct the facility? Will we use a bid process? Will we have a construction manager? The last time we did a project of this scope was the late 1990s, called the Evanston Public Library. So we do not necessarily follow our normal bid processing, and we will have some experts come in and talk to the council about what our next steps should be so that when we are ready to go to construction, the council can make an informed choice. And with that, if I could ask Friends of Crown, we have Dr. Raj Gate. He has been a very instrumental member. Dr. Gate?
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Marty. He kind of stole a little of my thunder, so I'll keep this short and sweet. Want to thank you all for your continued support of the project. To date, as Marty said, we've raised $8.8 million from approximately 275 different donors. So this has been a project that has been a tremendous community event. We've raised money from all parts of Evanston. We have recently embarked on a brick campaign that began on the 4th of July parade. Hopefully you all got a flyer because I was handing them out, along with many of our other volunteers. That project, which was intended to be a grassroots project in many ways, has sold over 120 bricks in just over 6 weeks. We continue to move forward with that project. Even more interesting and more spectacular have been our public meetings, which we have engaged all the user groups, whether it's turf, whether it's ice hockey, figure skating, the library, the daycare. We've engaged many of the community groups who use the facility. Our last public meeting was August 3rd, where the comments were fantastic, very positive. I think the only negative comment we got was on the font size on one of the slides, which, if that's the worst thing you hear at a public meeting, I think we're heading in the right direction. The Lee Street neighbors have been very engaged, which has been helpful, and they provided very positive feedback, in addition to constructive criticism that Woodhouse Tanucci, who's been an excellent partner in the project, has incorporated into their concepts and their schematics. And we look forward, the Friends of Robert Crown, along with Woodhouse Tanucci, to showing you a path forward when we come back in September. Alderman Nguyen, as a 1995 graduate from Northwestern, I'm a little nervous about you going after my diplomas. I got them, but I'm going to go home and hide them so they can't be confiscated. But right. So on a more serious note, though, we appreciate everything and all the support from the council, and we're very excited about where this project is headed.
Great. And Dr. Gante, why don't you stay up there for a second, in case council members, on behalf of everybody up here, we are incredibly impressed by the work that you, PG and Greco, Daniel Stein, the consultants, everybody, the folks, Karen Lyons, Michael Tannen, everyone has done. I think there was a quote at the very beginning of this when we started out that said, someone said, the last time we did a fundraising effort, we raised a quarter. You raised a heck of a lot more than a quarter, and it's really impressive. And I know everybody up here is impressed by the work that your group has done. So, Alderman Wilson.
Primarily, I just want to thank you, the Friends of Crown, the fundraising team. So much of this has happened, what I'll call behind the scenes. An extraordinary amount of time and effort and energy has gone into this by you all and by the community. Participating in these community meetings, we've gone from just those initial stages where you're fleshing out these concepts. There's been a ton of community input, a ton of engagement from different groups, different neighbors. So the way that Woodhouse Tanucci has taken all of the input and put it into where we're at with the process has been really remarkable. And to be at that last meeting, and as you said, he's not kidding. I think the only negative comment was about the font size on some of the slides, but that really reflects how much energy's gone into this collaborative effort, and I'm thrilled about it. Couldn't be more excited and proud of the team for the fundraising, and can't wait to get it going. So thank you all for your support throughout.
This is where I have to stretch because. But I would. Do you have any further comments?
Nothing further.
Then I would clearly. I do want to point out those what you see on the screen there. We have some very concrete steps that we've been working for about 4 months with the whole public input process. And again, what you will be receiving is a schematic design, and we call that the box and bubble drawings that show both where the fields would be, where the general shape of the building, but none of the construction drawings. And a proposal then, when we hired Woodhouse Tanucci originally, they outlined a scope of their total engagement if they were hired on. And we said, thank you very much for that, but you'll have to get approved at each step of the way. So we will be coming back with a proposal from them for what's called the construction drawing stage of the project, where they build all the documents necessary for a firm to build both the facility and the fields.
Yeah, my last comment would be that Woodhouse Tanucci has been an incredible partner in this, and they've taken comments that constructively and worked with them to come up with great solutions to issues that have been raised by the public. So it's been incredibly helpful.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And for Marty, just to Dr. Gate, I haven't attended all the meetings, but thank you very much, the efforts and all the other volunteers. One of the feedbacks that I have received, Alderman Wilson, from some of the neighbors who border Robert Crown, is the issue of parking. And we've talked about this throughout the evening, and I just hope that when we look at the various drawings, and Marty, we discussed this earlier, that there's consideration put into the front end of just maximizing as much parking as possible, just in anticipation of what's going to be a great building.
So the parking's been discussed extensively and very thoughtfully, and there's a well-devised plan for the parking lot.
Yeah. Still a concern, so I just have to raise it.
Definitely a concern, but I think you're going to like the solutions.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion on the table? All right. If not, thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Gate.
Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Lyons, I don't think there's a motion or anything we need. I think that was just for discussion. Please confirm.
That is correct. No direction this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right. We're going to move on to the consent agenda, Administration and Public Works, Alderman Braithwaite. And I think at this point, after several meetings, we know sort of how we have to do this to do them separate. We'll do payroll, and then we'll go to the bills list.
I'd like to move item A1, payroll July 10th, 2017 through through July 23rd, in the dollar amount of $3,135,617.50 for action.
Thank you. City Clerk Standen tonight. Ms. Richardson, could you take the roll?
Does that need a second?
Oh, excuse me. I guess I do need a second. Okay. Thank you, everyone. All right.
Thank you.
All right. And if you could take the roll on this.
Alderman Ravel. Aye. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Aye. Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffren.
Aye.
All right. A1 payroll passes 9-0. Alderman Braithwaite.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I'd like to move item A2, bills list August 15, credit card activity, period ending in June 30th, 2017. Dollar amount, for the bills list, $5,613,710.30, and the credit card activity through June 30th, 2017, and the dollar amount of $242,760.91. It's also for action.
Second.
Okay. Stand-in City Clerk, could you take the roll?
Alderman Ravel. Aye. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffren.
I abstain.
All right, so that A2 passes 8-0 with one abstention. Alderman Wilson.
So missing from the consent, of course, of the minutes. Would you just, on behalf of the council, transmit a request that the minutes be caught up with?
Yes, I will. When the city clerk is back in town, I have to go out for a couple days, and I am back. I will sit down and have a conversation about the importance of the city council minutes, and that those are included promptly at our next city council meeting.
Is there an explanation why?
I'm not aware why. I will talk to the city clerk about that.
Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Braithwaite.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to move item A3.1, the contract extension with Moran Salt Company for the purchase of salt in the dollar amount of $355,125. I'd also like to move item A3.2, sole source purchase of Tallman street lights, poles, and parts, and that's going to be in the dollar amount of $60,778.40. I'd also like to move item A3.3, contract with Black and Vet Corporation. Veach, thank you, for the 2017-2018 hydraulic modeling services, not to exceed the dollar amount of $50,000. I'd like to move item A3.4, capital improvement plan, that's going to be placed on file. A3.5, which is the contract with Structures Construction LLC for the Dempster Beach office renovations. That's going to be in the dollar amount of $249,000. $297. I'd also like to move item A3.6, the contract with Copenhaver Construction, Inc. for the Gibbs Morrison Site Improvement Project. That's going to be in the dollar amount of $345. I'd also like to move item 3.7, contract for engineering services with Wiss Janney Elsner Associates is related to the Service Center Emergency Repair Project. That's going to be in the dollar amount of $44,300. Item 3.8, contract with Instituform Technologies USA LLC for the large diameter sewer rehab project. That's going to be at Mulford Street in the the contract amount, $330. I'd also like to move item 3.9. It's a sole source contract with CRT Systems, Inc. for emergency sewer repair at 2750 Lincolnwood Drive, and that's in the amount of $28,500. I'd also like to move item 3.10. It's a change order number 1 with Schroeder and Schroeder, Inc.
Remove that, please, from the
Okay.
consent agenda.
All right, that's been removed at the request of Alderman Suffredin. I'd also like to move item 3.11, which is the purpose of 2 vehicles from Curry Motors for the administrative services, and 1 from Burris Equipment for Public Works Agency, and that's in the dollar amount of $43,846. I'd like to move item 3.12, agreement with Passport Parking, Inc., providing mobile payments for parking citation management platform and digital permitting. Item A4, which is Resolution 68-R-17, authorizing the city manager to enter into a 2-4-month lease agreement for the vacant studio spaces at Noyes Cultural Arts Center. I'd also like to move item A5, which is Resolution 29-R-17, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a loan agreement with Sweet Vendom Inc., DBA Cafe Corral.
Can you please remove that?
Yes, that's removed at the request of Alderman Fleming. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to move item A6, which is Ordinance 54-17, authorizing the city manager to execute a lease of city-owned property located at 633 Howard Street with Sweet Vendom Inc. And please note that that is for introduction and action. Oops, you know what? Is that the one we need to remove? So I can't remember at AP&W. I think we removed A5.
A5 was removed, and A6 is the lease agreement.
Is the lease agreement. Okay, so again, A6 is Ordinance 54-17, authorizing the city manager to execute a lease at city-owned property, 633 Howard with Sweet Venom, and that is also for introduction and action.
If I could have A6 removed from the
Okay,
consent
thank
agenda,
you.
please.
That's what I figured. I'd like to move item A7, Ordinance 68-0-17.
Remove, please.
And, okay, we're going to remove that also. I'd like to move item A8, Ordinance 74-17, amending the city code to establish a 4-way stop at the intersection of Marcy Avenue and Colfax Street. I'd also like to move item A9, Ordinance 82-0-17, authorizing the 2017 A, B, and C obligation bond issues. That's for introduction. I'd also like to move item A10, Ordinance 77-0-17, decreasing the number of Class 1 liquor licenses for Barn Investment LLC, doing business as the Barn. And also item A11, Ordinance 78-0-17, increasing the number of Class D liquor licenses for the Barn Investment LLC, doing business at the Barn. That's also for introduction. I'd like to move item A12, Ordinance 69-0-17, amending the Title 10 Motor Vehicle and Traffic Chapter 11 Traffic Schedules, Section 18, Residence Parking Only Districts. It's for action. Item A13, Ordinance 70-0-17, amending the Title 10 Motor Vehicles and Traffic Chapter 11 Traffic Schedules, Section 18, Residence Parking Only Districts. That's also for
Would you
action.
take A14 off?
Okay, 814 has been removed at the request of Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Alderman
Yep.
Wraith. Braithwaite. We'll move to Alderman Rainey to go through the consent agenda for planning and development.
Do you want to?
Do you guys want to, oh, I thought last time we basically did consent on the whole thing, and then we voted with the items that are removed.
You got it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry.
Hey, it's been 32 years of a female mayor around here. I'm anticipating being called madam for at least a couple of years.
I apologize, although she's a very nice person. Planning and Development Committee. P1, I move introduction of Ordinance 44017, amending various sections of Title VI of the City Code to modify notice requirements for zoning applications and hearings. I move introduction of Ordinance 45017, amending the City Code Sections 6419A4 and 618.3, granting zoning administrator authority to establish the front lot line. That's for introduction.
Alderman Rainey, would you take P3 and P4 off, please?
That's it. I'm removing P3, Ordinance 79017, and P4, Ordinance 47017, that's 1726 Hinman, from the consent agenda and will be addressed later. I'm going to move the appointments, Parks and Rec Board, Donald Michelin, and that is for action. I move approval of the consent agenda.
Do I have a second? Okay, so we're all clear. Then the motion that's been seconded.
Who's second?
Alderman Fisk.
Fisk, thank
That's been seconded is to approve the consent agenda with the following items removed from the consent agenda for discussion: A310, A5, A6, A7, A14, P3, and P4. Okay. All right. Ms. Richardson, could you take the roll?
Sure can. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Rue Simmons. Alderman Sufferton.
All right. The consent agenda passes 9-0. Alderman Braithwaite, if you would like to take us through the removed items on the administration planning.
Mr. Mayor, the first item is item 310. I'd like to move change order number 1 with Shorter and Shorter Inc. For 2017, and that's the alley and street improvement on, what is that? That's Callan Avenue and Howard Street.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay. For discussion, Alderman Rainey?
I'm only going to say there's a desperate need for parking in the Clyde, Callan, Brummel neighborhood for the residents that live there. They've needed it for years, and there's finally an opportunity to do it. Could cost more next year. It seems to me to either be this year or next year. The money's going to be the same, if not more, next year. So I plead with the council, let's do it this year so we can have it before winter. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Sufferton?
Yeah, my objection is just that if we're going to have a plan and we're going to have budgets, and this is a next year project, let's keep this a next year project. We all have things in our ward that we would like done. I don't see any emergency basis for this to jump to the front of the line. I appreciate that it fills a need, but I just ask that we maintain the integrity of our planning process and make this a next year project, because that's what it is.
Thank you. Alderman Rue Simmons?
I support it. It's not unique on this street on Callan. There are parking needs all over the city. I hope that we can find solutions for other areas. And I understand what it's like not to have a parking spot when I get home tonight. I'm sure I'm going to have to park 2 blocks away. So I'm hoping that we can support this and get some relief for the families that live in this neighborhood.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm also going to vote in support of this. I used to live on that 130 block of Clyde, and that was Alderman Rainey probably about 10 years ago. And with the addition of businesses as well as housing, and you're exactly right, there are a large number of multi-units that are on both sides of that block. And I think Alderman Ruth Simmons made an excellent point. I could not imagine just as for the young families in that area coming home after hours and the competitiveness for spots. So, Alderman Suffern, I hear your point, and I think we had a lengthy discussion at AP&W that talked about that process. So hopefully you and anyone else who would have a concern is comfortable moving forward. So I plan on voting yes.
Thank you, Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Fleming?
I just have nothing against the residents on Callan. I also used to live on Callan. I guess everyone here has lived on Callan. And I have people in my ward who get parking tickets because they don't have parking as well. And so I'm happy to provide our citizen base what they need, but I do think we do need some processes. I think we need to work on our transparency in terms of decision making. And I think that we have to start at some point. And if we, I would like to see us make a plan, stick to a plan. I do understand emergencies come up. I do understand that sometimes we have to spend more than we plan to. I do understand that this is not necessarily costing us more, but I do think we need a better analysis of what roads need help and when we're going to help them, and stick to that as much as we can.
Thank you, Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk?
And I would build on that, Alderman Fleming, and say that there needs to be more communication with each of the ward aldermen about needed projects, because sometimes some very needed projects go unanswered.
Thank you. All right, seeing no more red lights, we have a motion that was seconded to approve the contract with Institute Form Technologies. Yeah, excuse me, A310, excuse me, for the change order number 1. This is A310, change order number 1, Schroeder and Schroeder, for the 2017 Alley and Street Improvement Project. We have a motion that was seconded. Can we go ahead and take a roll?
Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
No.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton. Okay.
All right. Well, I did my math wrong here, but I know that I had four no's, so I must have had 5 yeses. So
I had 3 no's.
You had 3 no's.
Excuse me, I had 3 no's. It's getting late. I'm somehow messing up here. So that A310 passes 6-3.
And just for clarification, I'm sorry, you all said second, a number of you seconded at the same time. Can I have who seconded this motion? Doesn't matter.
Who wants the second?
All right.
Alderman Fiscal.
That's
second.
fine.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Braithwaite, let's go to the next item.
All right, so again, item A5 was removed at committee. So, Mayor, members of City Council, I'd like to move item A6, ordinance 54-0-17, authorizing the city manager to execute a lease agreement with city-owned property located at 633 Howard Street with Sweet Venom, Inc.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, open for discussion. Alderman Sufferton?
This is going to be a great thing for Howard Street. I just want to be clear. Is the concept of the city being a lender dead, and this is just the lease, or are we going to come back later and ask for the city to make a loan?
This is a loan.
This is a loan. A5 is
No, A5's off we took A5 off. This is A6. This is the lease.
No.
A5 we took off.
Oh, we did take it off.
A5 A5 is not,
AP&W.
did not happen in AP&W.
That's
Administration of
true.
Public Works. It did
Right.
not happen.
A5 is a loan. I mean,
Right, but A5 doesn't.
We took off at AP&W.
A5's not on the agenda anymore. A6 is what we're talking about here.
No, but
I
I
had,
read it in.
I had A5 and A6 that were both taken off
took it
of
off.
this agenda. So right now we are discussing, they're sort of related, right? So we're discussing, though, right now, A5.
Oh, we took it off of
But A5 didn't come out of
Right.
Administration
So
of Public
point of
Works.
information, my mistake.
Oh.
I should have read into A5 first and then A6, so that was my mistake.
Okay.
So we can either take A6 and then go back and address A5.
But I don't think we would address A5 here, right? Because we didn't address it in AP&W.
It can be.
It can be, okay.
Mr. Lyons?
Mr. Mayor, procedurally, when we removed it from the AP&W committee, it was to come directly to council because it had already been reviewed by the Economic Development Committee.
All right, well, then I'm a no. Get out of here with the city loaning money and go to a bank.
So,
Okay,
again,
so-
point of information, I'm sorry. So can I read A6 and then go back in A5? Okay. Whatever your pleasure.
I don't
So let's go-
understand what the question is.
Let's go ahead, and there was a motion that I thought that was seconded for
A6.
I thought it was
Both. No, there was a motion for both. So I had a question for A5, so I asked for it to be taken off the consent agenda. However, I forgot that A5 was not read in APMW, right? And so I don't know if, so it wasn't even supposed to
it
be
was
on the
supposed to
consent
move
agenda.
straight to
So I don't
the
know when we talk about that.
I can withdraw my motion and go back to A5, and then we'll take A5, then followed by A6.
Whatever.
Okay.
Okay.
So I withdraw my motion for A6. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'd like to move item A5, Resolution 29-R-17, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a loan agreement with Sweet Vendom, Inc., doing business as Cafe Corral.
Second.
And I second.
Corley.
Okay, and there's a second to that. Okay, for discussion now. Alderman Rainey, and then we'll go to Alderman Wilson.
I was just
Oh.
going to say it's a loan. The terms are pretty good, and he's got a 3% interest rate, 10-year term.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Wilson?
I agree with Alderman Rainey, and you know, if one wants to not do loans, then we can change the policies, but you don't come into a council meeting and say, oh, we're going to completely upend the way we do things and go to a bank. I mean, this is something that there's a process and a procedure that the applicant's gone through, and you know, compared to many other things we do, where we just hand money out without expecting to get it back, I'm just stunned and baffled that the idea that somebody would actually pay us back with interest, would sign a personal guarantee, and would have a very significant default rate would not be at least entertained. So hopefully we can support this.
Thank you. Alderman Sufferton?
It's secured.
Yeah, secure.
It's secured by the property that's bought.
It's the equipment. It's
With the equipment,
loan.
right. So
And a personal guarantee.
I don't think
get
the city
that
of
to
Evanston should be in the business of loaning money to businesses. My constituents, if they want to partner in a bakery on Howard Street, are free to do that on their own. I'm not going to bind them to that. I appreciate your respect for the procedure, but this is the fourth time we've done something where it's been like, well, that's just the policy. What are you going to do? 25 grand for a facade, whatever it is. We need to exercise some judgment. I'm off both these. This is bad. This is great for the neighborhood, terrible for my constituents. I'm out.
Okay. Alderman Fisk?
And I think that's a good point. I think the point to, you know, to look at process is a good one to have an Economic Development Committee. And so I would make a reference to Economic Development Committee to look at this program. I will be supporting this. I do think the terms are better than what we've given before. I would just like to make sure that the equipment is actually being purchased and not leased, and hope that it's successful.
Thank you. Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Again, I'm in support. I hope that we can support this. I think that it is great judgment. He has a tremendous business downtown Evanston that's doing well, and he qualifies in the process. He's eligible, and I don't think now is the time to challenge that. So I'm going to be in full support of it.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Fleming?
Actually, Alderman Rainey was before me.
Oh, okay, Alderman Rainey. Sorry, I missed that.
It's okay. And your turn.
I was calling Alderman Fleming, but I guess you went, so.
The argument has been a process, that we need to have a process that is transparent. We have a process. We've been through it over and over, and we followed it. We followed it by the book in economic development, and that's what we're doing here. And in those cases where we followed it and we've been extremely transparent, we have been so successful. And I'm very, very proud of the fact that we have been successful, and we have cases that we can prove that success. And it is only because we have this process that we've been successful. And we have evidence. We can take you there and show you how successful we've been. And people have said from the very beginning, this is, this can't possibly work. And we have shown every single time that it does work. And I know people think, it can't possibly work, but it does. And so our staff has been genius, and the people that we have dealt with have been so diligent and hardworking, and that's why we've made it every single time.
Okay, thank you all.
And
Thank you, Alderman
I don't
Rainey.
know what more I can say, but you can't say this can't work, because it does work.
Alderman Fleming?
So my initial concern when I read this last week was I remember this building because it was in the news when Good to Go was interested in moving over there. So I initially had a lot of concerns there why we didn't go with Good to Go, and we went now with this this company. I did my research and found the answer there. I just would say if they did go through the process, and I am not on economic development, but I'm trusting my colleagues who are, that if they went through the process and the money is available and they, cannot access a loan from the bank or whatever the process is, I'm going to trust that happened. But I guess to reiterate what Alderman Fisk said, I just would like to make sure as we're going into potentially a pretty tight budgeting session and budgeting year next year that we really analyze our economic development funds, and if we have processes or we have programs that maybe we can scale back a little bit so that the taxpayer doesn't have the perception that we're giving a lot of money to businesses, yet raising their property taxes or raising their parking fees or whatever else. So I think we have to be very mindful about the signal that might send, even if people have gone through the correct process. So I will be more committed to following economic development so that I can educate myself in that. So those are my statements.
Thank you, Alderman Fleming. Alderman Rainey?
Well, I think the important thing to look at is the ROI. And in every single case, we are making money out of these investments. And that is why we can continue to make these loans, because we are making money out of the investments. And it's the way to do business. It's the smart way to do business. And not only are we making money out of the individual businesses, but we are starting to get the attention of the market. And I will tell you right now that Sherwin-Williams building at 619 Howard went on the market on, let's say, I'm not using the exact day, but let's say it went on the market on a Monday, and on a Friday it had a full price offer. That dump of a building had a full price offer. And, that's just incredible. And the reason it had a full price offer is because guess why? Advertisement. It's next door to Peckish Pig, and that's what happened. The Surgery Center that had been empty for, 4 or 5 years, it's been sold. And that's what's starting to happen down there. And the reason is because that street is starting to come alive. Why is it starting to come alive? Because the city of Evanston became the bank for various entrepreneurs, small business people, who we took a chance on. We tried to get the current owners of those buildings to make the same investments the city of Evanston made. And they said, nobody will ever come. Nobody will ever have a restaurant on Howard Street. That's what they told us. And we said, We'll prove it to you. Sell us your building. They did, and look what we did.
okay,
So,
I think- thank you,
I'm finished.
Alderman Rainey. Thank you.
I know I can go on.
I know you can.
I have to convince people of this.
Well, I think we've had a lot of debate on this. Are we okay with
I still haven't
taking? We've got the motion in a second. Are we okay with taking a vote?
I was ready to call the question.
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Richardson, if you can take the vote.
Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
We're on A5. I'm sorry, I've gotten totally
A5.
confused. Thank you. Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton.
Okay, so A5 passes the council 8-1.
Mayor, members of council, I'd like to move for introduction and action item A6, ordinance 54-0-17, authorizing the city manager to execute a lease of the city-owned property located at 633 Howard Street with Sweet Bendham, Inc.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seeing no lights, Alderman Sufferton?
I just want to say, I hear you're very successful. I'm excited that you're going to be on Howard Street. This lease is a great thing. I wish that you would be doing this without my constituents' money. That's all. But I wish you great success. I'm going to vote for the lease. I've heard great things about your business. I just don't think that we should be handing out money like this. And it's not crazy. That's like, talk to the people in your ward about it.
All right, thank you, Alderman Sufferton. Alderman Rainey?
This is a tax increment financing district.
Right. It's not found money.
It's not your constituents' money either.
We subsidize the TIF.
Okay,
We'll call the question.
okay, let's call the question. Ms. Richardson, can you take the roll?
Yes. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Yep.
Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton.
Yes.
All right, so A6 passes the council 9-0. Alderman Braithwaite?
Yep, Mayor, members of City Council, I'd like to move item A7, ordinance 68-0-17, authorizing the city manager to enter into a real estate contract for the sale of city-owned property at 100 Chicago Avenue to Harrington Brown LLC. And again, this is for introduction and action.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All right, okay, Alderman Fleming?
Can you clarify or give an update that he purchased the adjoining property via the tax? Oh, tomorrow. He was purchasing Steve's Licking Cakes. And then my other, statement that I would like to make, I found out through the lovely news media that he had a property, or he has a property in Chicago. I can't remember the exact details of it, that I believe is sitting undeveloped for a couple of years. So I hope that we are extremely mindful with this developer, that we are doing our due diligence to make sure this property is developed.
Yeah, Mr. Lyons?
I'll take the second question first. The agreements all have milestones in it, and so the city does not put out any funds until actual work is done, so it's all on a reimbursement basis. If it sits, then it sits, and no money will be transacted out of the TIF as far as any incentive is concerned. That being said, I'll defer to Mr. Zalmazak on the status of the private property closing.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Mr. Brown is here this evening if we wanted to ask him about the status of the closing, but I do understand that that is supposed to happen tomorrow.
Okay, all right, seeing no more lights, Ms. Richardson, could you take the roll?
Yes. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton.
All right. Item A7, ordinance 68-0-17 passes the City Council 8-1.
Mr. Mayor, before we move on, I just want to make a correction with item A8. It was moved for introduction, and at the committee level, we decided to move it for introduction and action this evening.
On A8. Okay, that was for introduction and action, A to no. Okay. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Can we go ahead and do a quick roll on that?
Sure. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons. Alderman Sufferton.
All right. So A8, ordinance 74-0-17 passes the Evanston City Council 9-0.
Action and introduction. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to move item A14, ordinance 71-0-17, amending the Title 10 Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 11, Traffic Schedules, Section 18, Residence Parking Only Districts. It's for action.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had some questions about this because I think it affects buildings I think the precedent affects buildings in my ward, and I just wanted some clarification about the two buildings that are included. I believe one of them is right at the corner of Prairie and Central and includes, is the entrance on Central or is the entrance is on Prairie? Okay, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's a small courtyard apartment building.
Okay, and they don't have...
it doesn't affect the businesses on Central Street.
Right, and parking is not provided within that building. Now, the other building, that's also the 2542 to 2566 building, does that building provide interior parking?
That's the building we're talking about.
Oh, okay, so it's all the one building on the corner
Right.
that wraps around. Okay.
Well, I mean, if you look at the building, it looks like it's on Prairie.
No, I'm familiar with the building.
okay.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the building. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't a doorway facing Central Street, because that's what would cause the problems in my ward in a
Right.
similar situation.
Right. No, all these addresses are accessed through the courtyard.
Okay. In that case, I will be supportive.
Alderman Ravel, did you have anything else? I see your light on. Okay. All right, seeing no further lights, Ms. Richardson, could you take the roll?
Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons. Alderman Sufferton.
All right. Item A14, ordinance 71-0-17 passes the Evanston City Council 9-0. All right, we're moving on to planning and development and the items that were moved off. Alderman Fisk. P3. Excuse me. Excuse me. Alderman Rainey
Yes,
for P3.
Mayor Hagerty, P3, ordinance 79-017, granting major zoning relief for open parking and a rear setback for an addition at 325 Greenwood Street. We suspended the rules. This is for introduction and action. I move approval.
Second.
Alderman Fisk.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My overlooking of the request to suspend the rules, I apologize for that if that was my mistake. This does have the support of all the adjacent property owners, and I hope it has the support of the council tonight for suspension of the rules and adoption.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Richardson, can you take the roll?
Yes. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons. Alderman Sufferton.
All right. Item P3, ordinance 79-0-17 passes the Evanston City Council 9-0. Alderman Rainey.
P4, ordinance 47-017. This ordinance is for action and grants landmark status to the building and lot of record at 1726 Hinman Avenue. I move approval.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing no lights, Ms. Richardson, if you could take the roll. You're doing a great job as our standing clerk tonight.
Well, thank you, sir. Alderman Ravel. No. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
No.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
So I want to be clear before I cast this vote. So if I vote no, then I'm not in support of it being a landmark, correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you. No.
Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson.
No.
Alderman Rue Simmons.
No.
Alderman Sufferton.
No.
Okay. Item P4, ordinance 47-0-17, granting the landmark status to the building and lot record at 1726 Hinman, failed to pass on a vote of 7-2 of the Evanston City Council. Okay. With that, we will move on to call of the wards. Before I do that, I would like to ask Mr. Lyons to go first, because I know there was one item that you also wanted to cover.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of councils, my apologies. During the my announcements, I should have suggested a date on the equity training. A date was thrown out there of October 25th, 7 to 9 for your consideration. I know the hour is late, so I will not request an answer immediately. However, I would like feedback as quickly as possible on October 25th, 7 to 9 p.m. A location to be announced, but most likely here for equity training.
Okay. And I will follow up and ask Dar, if you could follow up and ask Dar just to.
Can we check and see if that conflicts with economic development? I've been trying to fill out our city calendar.
And I will go ahead and check that out for you.
Yep. All right, so we will have Dar work with the city manager's office and find a date that works if it can't be October 25th from 7 to 9 p.m.
I'm sure there's some other
Well,
committee meetings.
we'll
I
confirm.
will take feedback from all council members, and we will revisit it through communications.
Okay, let's do that. I know it's late, and we also have executive session coming up. Let's go ahead and do call of the wards. Who did we start with this evening? Was it Alderman Ravel?
Yes, I'd just like to mention that this Thursday, August 17th, the community is invited to a presentation on the habitat restoration and land use plan for the Canal Shores Golf Course. Thanks to a matching grant from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources and generous contributions from many individuals and organizations such as including the Isaac Walton League and the Garden Club of Evanston, Canal Shores has been able to engage an environmental consulting firm to help it develop an ecological plan for the property. So at the meeting on Thursday, the consultants are going to review the ecological data that they've collected thus far and present a preliminary design for habitat restoration and for passive recreation on the golf course. And then we'll be breaking into small groups for everybody to look at this concept in more detail and provide feedback. So the meeting is Thursday evening, 7 to 9 p.m. at the American Legion Hall, second floor, 1030 Central Street. Hope to see you all there.
Great. Thank you, Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rady?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the council for their support this evening and to tell you that tonight something very special happened with the votes, and that is we put two properties on the tax rolls that have not been on the tax rolls that are now on the tax rolls in a TIF, which means that the total taxes paid on those two properties, which is not a lot of money, but have never been on the tax rolls, and one in ever, and number two in many years, will totally be increment in the TIF. 100 Chicago Avenue, which is a city parking lot, and 633 Howard has never been a taxable property, probably in 50 or 60 years. So that is really a good thing. So thank you very much.
Alderman Fleming?
Thank you. One, I would like to just send my condolences and the City Council's condolences to the family of the young man who lost his life in Evanston today. I hope that our citizens will know that our police force is working hard on that and that we are committed to having safe streets for whoever's here. Second, I would like to make a referral or request of our staff to present police data at the next Human Services meeting. So I would request that our juvenile arrests, which last year were 148, 113 African American and 35 white, I would request that we have a expanded report on the age, gender, and race of those arrestees and any information that we can have on their arrest, so the reason they were arrested, so for the next Human Services meeting. Lastly, thanking people who came out to the National Night Out in the 9th Ward. It was a great success, and thank you for the 8th Ward residents who also came over. And I invite the 9th Ward residents to join me on August the 24th at 7 p.m. We will have a ward meeting at Pope John. Lots of good information, including Commissioner Suffredin, who's going to come and help people apply for a property tax appeal. And the same meeting will also happen on Saturday, the 26th at 9 a.m. The Saturday meeting is at the fire station on Custer and Madison, and the Thursday night meeting is in the basement of Pope John School. So hopefully the residents can come out and make their appeal for property taxes, because that window is going to close August 31st.
Thank you, Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to invite everyone to the First Ward meeting on Tuesday, September 5th from 7 to 9 in the library. One of the things that we will be discussing is the proposed development, including a performing arts venue at in the 1700 block of Sherman Avenue. The developer is going to be there and to make a presentation, and we will have discussion. And since this is the last meeting that we're having in August, I wish everyone a happy rest of the summer, the last week of summer. I'm also going to make a reference to the P&D committee to consider including 1726 Hinman Avenue in the local historic Lakeshore Historic District. I think that's a very important discussion to have, and I'm sorry there wasn't more discussion this evening.
Thank you, Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to thank the staff, Division Chief Paul Polyp, and the staff of Station Number 4 in the 2nd Ward for hosting our 2nd Ward meeting, and all the residents that came out. We are in budget season, so I do have a referral to staff for a budget memo looking at, Marty, the cost effectiveness of bidding out the entire Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the Main Street project in light of the fact that we're going to be looking at Crown. So the difference between doing, again, this is just for the design phase, Marty, the whole thing versus dividing it into 2 years. And then I would also like a budget memo looking at the waste transfer funds. I had a resident and member of the committee who, when we were looking at the air quality devices, wanted to know if we can spend that. I think we allocated $200,000 if we can start the bidding process this year in 2017. And finally, I'd like to see a budget memo on the infrastructure projects that are taking place in the 2nd and 5th Ward for the capital projects for the areas that we had discussed previously, for the alleys and other infrastructure. So I can follow up.
Which year?
Pardon me?
Which year?
That's going to be for 2018. Right.
Thank you, Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I would like to let people know that my next office hours will be Thursday morning, September 7th, from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. at Brothers K. And please feel free to join me. No need to make an appointment. Then the second item is I'd like to offer my condolences to the family of John Maxey. He was really a unique and remarkable Evanstonian. John was a Holocaust survivor. He was a noted architect. He designed the Purple Hotel, if you all remember that, over at TUI. He was a gifted artist, and he was my architectural advisor on many projects here in Evanston. And was a total delight, an absolute delight. And so my condolences to his remarkable family as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson?
I would like to make a reference to the law department and the police department. I've discussed this previously, but I would like to get and I don't want to wait for any more committees because I'm tired of waiting for committees to meet or not meet, but I would like an ordinance drafted that would provide for the automatic expungement of juvenile arrest records where the juveniles were not charged. The state has a similar provision, and I'd like to have that ordinance go ahead and have the police department and the law department go ahead and put something together for us that we can go ahead and entertain. I don't want to wait anymore, so I'm just kind of done waiting on that. Thanks.
I'm going to jump out of order for a second, though. Alderman Fisk?
I'm sorry, I just have to ask our law department for clarification on that, because my understanding was that we on the council are only to be making references to standing committees, if that's not correct.
You
Pardon
sent
me?
it to law.
No, but law is not a standing committee. Human Services would be the committee that would oversee that.
Just Alderman Wilson, just for a point of information, we did discuss, trust me, I feel the same sense of urgency, and earlier this afternoon at 4 o'clock, we discussed the alternatives arrest and taking steps to getting that going, and that is a high priority on our list of things to do.
Yeah,
and those are completely different things, but
no, but that's part of what we discussed. I mean, we discussed, and we can discuss this offline, but I want you to know that was specifically brought up today.
that's great, but I brought it up like a year ago, a really long time ago. So I would like the law department to draft an ordinance. And Alderman Rainey, I think you're right. I think I just need the council to agree to that direction.
Second.
So thank you.
Making a reference that is not to a standing committee, all you need is a council vote. To a standing committee, you do not need a council vote. But to a non-council, if you want to make a
I'm asking for a
reference-
council vote.
Huh?
Can I do that? I can do that now, right? I'm asking for it.
Okay. I vote on
Okay.
Okay, so we'll do a quick vote here in the middle of our call for words of that Alderman Wilson put out there a motion that was seconded by Alderman Nguyen to have city staff, the city attorneys draft an ordinance that would be in line with the state that would allow for expungement of juvenile records upon reaching the age of 18.
So, yeah, to be more clear and more specific, to provide for the expungement of arrest records of juveniles where the juveniles were not charged with any crime. I don't see any reason why that record needs to be kept, particularly in light of the fact that there was no charge. Automatic expungement, right?
But it has to still come to a standing committee. I mean, the ordinance.
Yeah, it's still going to come before this committee. So we've got a motion, we've got a second. Could you take a roll on that?
Sure. No roll calls.
Okay. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Okay, thank you, Alderman Wilson. Let's see, Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Thank you. I'd like to encourage everyone to attend the Community Mixer. It will be on this Sunday, August 20th, during the time of the community picnic. You can come inside the building. It is presented by the 5th Ward, Planning Committee, and they'll have workshops on leadership, entrepreneurship, financial literacy, first-time home buyer, soft skills. In addition to that, FAM is celebrating 50 years, and they are going to host the Family Fun Walk Run on August 26th at Fleetwood Jourdain, and it will be 2.5 miles. Come and celebrate with FAM. The cost is $5. And I will have our regular ward meeting this Thursday, the 17th, 7 p.m. at Gibbs Morrison. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Sufferman?
I'd just like to acknowledge an act of vandalism that happened in the 6th Ward at the home of District 65 Board Vice President Anya Tanyabudi and her husband Eric. They had a Black Lives Matter sign in their front yard that was vandalized. And I'd just like to encourage all of our neighbors to be vigilant, look out for each other, and respectful. In November, there was a Trump-Pence sign in the 6th Ward that was vandalized. I'm not equating the two. I'm just pointing out that we all need to respect each other's views, and property and look out for each other.
Thank you, Alderman Suffernan. And I have one other announcement that I need to make that I forgot at the beginning. We had 26 applicants for the civilian police complaint review process or assessment process that we're going to go through. I am going to bring to the council, recommend to the council, the 9 members at our September 11th meeting, which is right on the schedule that we put out there. I think it's really, really important that we have a representative, body on here. And after looking through all the applications, many of which are outstanding, and I appreciate everybody that submitted, I am going to reopen the application process because we continue to have some time and work with organizations here in town and really encourage some younger people in town to submit applications. Right now, we just have a deficiency of younger people, and I think that's important to make sure that representation is on there. So we will post something out on the city website and get that out there, but the reopening date will be from tomorrow until Friday, August 25th. And again, I will come to the council on that September 11th meeting. It'll be in the packet with the recommended 9 members of that committee. Okay. So with that, Alderman Wilson, if you'll lead us into executive session.
I will. Pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes, ILCS 120/2A, I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss agenda items regarding personnel, litigation, and minutes. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act. These exceptions are 5 ILCS 120/2A, C1, C11, and C21.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Or is there a second?
A second? All right. Meeting, all in favor?
Aye.
No one wants to stay here longer? All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.